Hello BookTube, my name is Kate and this is my channel, Chapter Kate. Alright, today I'm going to be doing a book haul because I haven't really done one this year and it's April something. It's beginning of April. And I've kind of collected quite a bit of books this year already. I'm not going to talk about the books that were given to me as gifts or as like giveaway prizes or anything like that because this is already going to be pretty long and I think there were 10 books that I've gotten as presents, and then the rest of these are books I either purchased or my husband purchased, or some of these were kind of gifts for my birthday, but it was more like, hey, let's go and pick out books, and so I actually like picked them out at the store, so I'm gonna include them. And then some of these are actually like my husband's books as well, so I didn't buy all of them, okay? And even if I did, you cannot judge me. It is my money. Yeah, let's just get into it. So the first book is The Devouring Grey by Christine Lynn Herman. So I've seen way too much hype about this book on the internet, on Twitters and whatevers. And everybody said I needed to pre-order it, so I didn't pre-order it. But I did go to a signing and I got to meet her and I got to watch her be interviewed by Megan Spooner, the author of Sherwood. And I ended up buying both of their books and they are both signed. So that's exciting. Got both of them signed. They're both nice little, oh no, hardcovers. So, oh, my nose itches. Okay. So Sherwood is basically, I believe what I got sort of from this is that Marion, who is like the main character of this, is also Robin Hood. So like she's Marion by day and then Robin Hood by night. She kind of has this dual persona going on. It also explores the idea of gender roles during this time period and expectations, which I find to be a really interesting topic in any book to kind of explore gender roles. So, and then The Devouring Grey is apparently like very magical. It's like an urban fantasy, including a lot of magic and such in New York. I think that there is basically something going on in the woods, and I think there are various points of view, which I really like multi-perspective books, so I'm kind of excited to see more about what it's about, but I kind of don't want to find out until I read it, because everybody seems to like it so much that I don't really want to go in with an expectation about what it's about, because sometimes that can limit my perception when I'm actually enjoying it or not. The same thing sort of happened for The Wicked Deep. I had an idea that it was like more fantasy and it ended up being more paranormal and I enjoyed that, but the expectation sort of threw me off. So I don't want to have too much expectation going into this. Then we have The Ocean at the End of the Lane. I hope that this was this year. Some of these I hope that they are actually books that I got this year and not for Christmas. But The Ocean at the End of the Lane, I love Neil Gaiman. I'll try to get all of his books. This is a very small one compared to a lot of them. And apparently it's more magical realism than fantasy, which honestly some of his like short stories kind of border on that. And so I'm definitely very excited to kind of see how that goes, because I find that Neil Gaiman really switches between having really simplistic sort of prose and then having really beautiful things to say. So I am kind of excited to see what he does here. He can do a lot with like not very many words, and so this is a very small book, so we'll see how it goes. So there is this middle-aged man who returns home for a funeral and meets this girl, and she refers to the pond, I think, in that area as like an ocean, so I think it's kind of based around their interactions. I don't really get a sense of a plot here. It might be more of an exploration in that relationship and things like that, but I really don't know. So it'll be interesting to sort of see. And then I also ordered a nice fancy copy of Good Omens from Waterstones, because all the copies around here I don't really like very much. I mean, I like the general mass market paperback cover, but then I don't like this like size book. So I was going to get two of the big ones, so I have the Devil and the Angel one, and then I found this and I was like, I have to have that also, because Neil Gaiman is someone whose books I do collect and have multiple copies of, so yeah. Next we have Kill the Farm Boy, which is actually one that my husband picked out. It's kind of a satire sort of situation. It's a funny twist on the typical like fairy tale farm boy trope, and it's supposed to be super punny. So I love puns. Yep, it's also written by 2 authors, so I always get interested in how they actually work together doing that. And those authors are Delilah S. Dawson and Kevin Hearn. And it's also a play on the Chosen One trope. So that'll be interesting. Next is Jessica Townsend's Nevermore, The Trials of Morgan Crow. I'm reading this because Jade from Jaded Reader picked it out. We have a little group and we kind of are trying to start alternating like favorite books and reading each other's favorite books, and we're all really falling behind on this one, so we have to get to it. And I'm saying we, I'm really just projecting because I haven't gotten to it because I'm slow and I keep getting distracted by a bunch of other stuff. Then we have Erotic Stories for Punjabi Widows. I have been eyeing this book for so long. Every time I pass it, I'm like kind of interested in it, but then I never grab it. So I went ahead and bought it because I thought it would be kind of an interesting read. I believe it is like an English teacher. Okay, so she's trying to teach English, I believe, as a second language to these ladies, and so they end up doing it through like short story writing, and then there are these guys who are, I think, threatening to reveal various secrets about people in the community. But I'm really curious about it, and I've heard only good things, and I figured this would also be a good idea for the Asian Readathon in May. So then we have The Vor, which I got really attracted to the covers of. It's a series, and they looked really interesting. And also it was blurbed by Ellen Moore, who is one of my favorites. So I'm really interested, but The Vor is essentially like an endless forest of mystery, and I love the mysterious forest trope. It also kind of, I think the forest is sentient or somewhat sentient, and I think that there's a myth that the Garden of Eden still lies within the forest, and so I'm kind of curious to see where that goes. We'll see. Next is The Bone Witch by Rin Chapeko, and I haven't heard a ton about this book, but I've seen a lot of people talk about enjoying it, but I don't know much about the contents. So I believe it is about necromancy, and I think she brings back her brother. I'm not sure if it's on accident or on purpose or... But I'm all for necromancy. I mean, not like in real life. Like, probably don't do that. Though I do love Frankenstein. Don't bring people back to life. It's weird. Next, we have The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. And I have heard so many like mixed things about this. Most of them have been good though. I believe it pulls on Chinese mythology and history, but I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it does. And so I think there's a girl from the South who doesn't have a lot of money and is kind of looked down upon in society, but she ends up with this great power, so it does follow that like typical sort of trope. But I am very interested to see how it kind of goes. There is an archery person, archer. There's an archer on the front, and I'm just there's a couple of these that have archers on them. It's weird. So there we go. I'm interested in it. And also this cover is like one of my favorite covers, I think. Next we have A Gathering of Shadows, the metallic. It's a special edition. I think it's like the metallic, called the metallic edition or something like that. I've been collecting. I have the silver one of A Darker Shade of Magic. So this is the next one. It's kind of like a rosy pewter color. I don't know. I want to get the black editions as well. It's got fan art in the front, which I think is so... I love fan art. It's so cool. So I'm really psyched to sort of see where we go here and look at all the pictures. I've already read the book, so it's not like the book itself is going to be surprising to me. It's just another from my little collection that I have. Next we have Emperor of the Eight Islands. I wanted it because the cover was pretty. But I think it's a series called The Tale of Shikanoko, and it's by Leanne Hearn. This book takes place in mythical medieval Japan, and it has multiple perspectives, and I believe that there is like a war going on. But you really don't actually get that much information from the synopsis. Then we have Black Leopard, Red Wolf by Marlon James, and I always am surprised by how heavy this book is when I pick it up. I don't know, like the pages are like super thin, so it's like really heavy. I tried reading this on an audiobook and it didn't work out. I liked the narrator, but I couldn't find a good volume where I could understand what he was saying. So it was either way too loud or too soft because his volume fluctuated so much. So I'm going to try again reading it physically. I just haven't quite got around to it because I'm kind of burnt out on high fantasy at the moment. And I will tell you why. Then we have The Priory of the Orange Tree. This book was a chunk. I enjoyed it so freaking much. I read it... Oh, I still have my stickies in here. I read it last month and it was just such an enjoyable experience. There are dragons. There are different types of dragons. There is an expansive sort of map of places. It's really cool. It's got feminism. It's got a matriarchal society. It's got different types of magic. And I enjoyed it so much, honestly. I just want to read it again. I marked a bunch of stuff, but like I went between audiobook and physical book for this one, so I definitely missed a ton of stuff when I was marking it. But honestly, the romance in this is beautiful. The magic in this is beautiful. The fighting in this is well written. There's a couple of characters that I really couldn't be bothered to care about, but they weren't there that often, so it was fine. But I really, really did love this book. So basically, there's a bloodline of people, and the thought is that if this one bloodline continues, and they always have one daughter, and if it continues, then the Nameless One, which is like a terrible giant dragon, will not rise again. And so there are people working against the bloodline that are kind of followers of the Nameless One, and then they're, trying to continue the bloodline, and then they're dealing with the fact that this woman is pretty much pressured to maintain safety for the entire, kingdom and other kingdoms by producing a child, which is so much pressure. But it's really beautiful. It's a really beautiful book. I loved it. Then we have Sadie by Courtney Summers. It's a signed copy. So I found a signed, it's not personalized, but I found a signed copy. Everyone has talked about this. So I don't really want to talk about it a lot, but it's a podcast based book that there's this girl and I think her sister went missing. So she tries to go find her sister. So it goes between this podcast, like reporting on the mystery and then her perspective. So I think I like that sort of vibe, and I also love books that are written in like an alternative format. There's a bent page in here. How dare. I'm gonna sue somebody. Then we have We Sold Our Souls by Grady Hendrix. I read Horror Store in January, which was really good, and he's the same guy. Also, it's got black sprayed edges, which is great. So there's this lady, and she's in like a death metal band. Is it death metal? Some kind of metal band. From what I heard, there's this woman, she plays in a heavy metal band, but then she kind of becomes a has-been. Her dreams don't quite go the way she wants, so they end up selling their souls to the devil to be an awesome rock band, and I'm so excited to read this. On top of it being like just honestly a beautiful book, after reading Horror Store, I wanted to read more from this author because, yes, there was like horror in it and paranormal stuff in it, but it was just amusing. It was put forth in a way that was really like funny and really well done, and the character development was great, and the relationships were great. So I'm really excited to get to this one. Plus, there's the added benefit that it's about a musician, which I enjoy. Then I got It Devours, and I got a signed first edition. This is the sequel to the Welcome to Night Vale book. I don't have the hardback of that edition, so I'm going to get it at some point. But after reading Alice Isn't Dead, I wanted to read more from Joseph Fink. So it's also got purple sprayed edges, and it's got this pretty stuff inside, so it's a nice book. But these books are based on the podcast Welcome to Night Vale, and I really enjoy that podcast. I'm not caught up because it's such a long running podcast, but I'm starting to get more like into it and stuff, but I've been listening to it for a bit. And so I'm really excited to kind of get into this series because I liked Alice Isn't Dead, but I haven't actually listened to the podcast. So I'm interested to see what the book is like if I've actually listened to the podcast. Then we have The Boneless Mercies by April Genevieve Tucholke. I didn't realize that this was by this author, and I've read one other book by this author, Wink Poppy Midnight, and I really did not enjoy that book at all. So I'm hoping that I enjoy this book more. I believe it is about this sect of women who are like trained to kill and all that good stuff, and they've survived for a really, really long time. There seems to be an air of magic and mystery around the story, which I always tend to enjoy. And also, I believe that they have to align with sea witches, and I love sea witches. Then we have a book I pre-ordered, which is The Near Witch by V.E. Schwab. This is a re-release of her debut novel, but I believe that there's this town and children keep disappearing, and so suspicion sort of starts surrounding this boy. But this is another one that I'm not going to talk a ton about because I already talked about it in my most anticipated video. So if you want more information about it, you can check it out there. However, one thing I did say incorrectly in that is that she had published it under Victoria Schwab, which I feel like the original was, but this one is published under her name V.E. Schwab. Typically she publishes YA under Victoria Schwab and adult under V.E. Schwab, but I believe this is a YA book. So either way, it doesn't really matter to me. I'm really excited to read it. Then we have The Queen of Swords by R.S. Belcher. This is about Anne Bonny. So I love anything about Anne Bonny, and the last Anne Bonny book I tried to read was the most disappointing thing I've ever encountered in my life. So hopefully this is better, and it probably will be, because I believe that they add kind of some sort of magic in there, which, yes, give me magic in my history, please. I think it's actually two perspectives. I think it's Anne Bonny and then maybe like a descendant of Anne Bonny. So I think it goes back and forth in time, but I'm not really sure. So we'll see when I get to it. Then I got Oh No by Alex Norris. This is one of my favorite little webcomics that I ever see. It's always like a simple like 3-frame, not always 3-frame, but it's usually like 3 frames, and the last frame is always oh no. I'm really happy that I found it. They're so simple and they're so cute, and I love it. Next, we have The Wicked Saints by Emily A. Duncan. I haven't heard a lot about the plot. I've just heard that this is really good. The synopsis on this, again, is one of those that doesn't actually give you much information, except for that it follows, I think, 3 characters. So, a girl, a prince, and a monster. I'm not sure if it has 3 perspectives or if just those are the 3 main like forces at work in the story. But there is magic, and there's definitely that traditional light and dark battle going on. So, we'll see. Hopefully, it's good, because it's gorgeous. And it's just upsetting when a gorgeous book isn't good, honestly. So hopefully it's good. And then the last book is Destroy All Monsters by Ken Hollings with illustrations by Savage Pencil. So this one's got illustrations in it, which I love books that have illustrations. And I saw another copy of this, like a different version at a bookstore recently. But I have this one. I got it at a used bookstore for $5, and I'm really into monsters, and I loved the art style. So we'll see how that goes. This book takes place in Japan, and there's a Japanese android that befriends these 2 American girls. There are all these Japanese monsters, like from all the old Japanese monster movies. So I'm pretty excited, and apparently, what? One part of the synopsis says, with aliens taking over the White House, Elvis returned from the dead, and a small telepathic dog. This is not your average read. But then you're not an average reader, are you? I love when books compliment me. It's nice. Honestly, I've gotten to where I just want to pick up weird things, so I found this. It was weird. I bought this. And that's all for this book haul. I also have a good chunk of graphic novels that I purchased this year, but I'm going to do those in a separate video. So, that's all. Tell me about some of the new books that you've picked out, or if you know anything about the books that I got this year. If you liked any of them, hated any of them, let me know. I know I didn't offer a ton of information, but I was trying to go through a lot at once. So maybe I'll try to do these more regularly, since I do buy a lot of books. But if you would like more of this junk, subscribe below. Bye! Tripping over shadows and I'm drowning in the night. I feel the soldiers coming, I'm putting up a fight.